الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Today is the 8th of Ramadan. 6th of Ramadan. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 6th of Ramadan, sorry. I'm spinning the 8th of Ramadan. It's the 6th of Ramadan, 1445. We continue the life of the Prophet ﷺ, Sira Nabawiyya. So we left it yesterday in the section where Halima radiallahu anha came to Mecca to take the Prophet ﷺ so that she can suckle him along with her son. So once she took the Prophet ﷺ, and she only took him because she did not want to go back without any baby, and no one actually wanted to take the Prophet ﷺ because he was an orphan, and obviously they took children to suckle them, hoping that the father of the son would give them money and things like that. But since he was an orphan ﷺ, they thought that his mother and grandfather would not be able to spend enough on him. So as we saw before, when she came to Mecca, the donkey that she rode on was lean and almost lame, and it was actually trailing the caravan. But once she got the Prophet ﷺ, all of a sudden it recovered speed, much to the amazement of Halima's fellow travelers, because there is a donkey or a mule that was lame and could barely walk, and all of a sudden now he's going faster than the rest of the caravan. And by the time they reached the encampments in the country of the clan of Bani Sa'd, that's where Halima was from, they found the scales of fortune turned in their favor, because the barren land all of a sudden was green with grass, and their beasts came back to them satisfied and full of milk. So basically they had a lot of things to graze on, with the barakah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in their land, because they took the Prophet ﷺ with them. So Halima said, we then took him back to his mother, earnestly requesting her to have him stay with us, and so we may benefit from the good fortune and blessings that he brought us. So persisted in our request, expressing our anxiety over the child catching a certain infection, because usually what they would do is take the child for 2 years, then after that give him back to his parents. But because she saw the barakah that came with the Prophet ﷺ, she convinced his mother to leave him with her, with Halima, much longer. So finally the wish was granted, and the Prophet ﷺ stayed with Halima until this one. Oh yeah. Okay, let me change spots. The mic behind me. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ ended up staying with them until he was about 4 or 5 years old. Then, as related by Anas in Sahih Muslim, Jibreel alayhi salam came down, opened the chest of the Prophet ﷺ, heart surgery as we call it today. So Jibreel alayhi salam opened the chest of the Prophet ﷺ, took out the Prophet ﷺ's heart. He then extracted a blood clot from the heart. So the heart had a blood clot. Jibreel alayhi salam took it out and said, that was the part of shaitan in you. So this tells us that things that we feel from shaitan is actually something that's physical. Now, will someone actually go and be able to find that in our hearts? I don't think so, but this is something that was actually physical, that was in the heart of the Prophet ﷺ. So Jibreel alayhi salam took it so that shaitan has no control over the Prophet ﷺ in terms of whispers and ordering him to do bad deeds. Because as he said ﷺ in another hadith, that him too, he has a qareen from the jinn, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this qareen from the jinn become a Muslim, so he only orders the Prophet ﷺ to do good deeds, because each human being has 2 qareen, one from the angel, one an angel qareen, and one a shaitan qareen. This is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ قَرِينُهُ رَبَّنَا مَا أَطْغَيْتُهُ. So each human beings. That's why, sometimes, you're not sure about doing something. One mind tells you to do good thing, the other one tells you to do bad thing. So these are the whispers of the angel, the Qareen, and also the angel from the jinn. So each one of us has a good Qareen and a bad Qareen, as is mentioned in the Quran. So Jibreel alayhi salam took out this blood clot out of the heart of the Prophet alayhi salam and said, that was the part of shaitan in you. And then he, Jibreel alayhi salam, washed the heart of the Prophet alayhi salam with the water of Zamzam. Actually, this operation is going to happen 2 to 3 times according to different scholarly opinions. The other time it's going to happen is before Isra and Mi'raj. Jibreel alayhi salam does another heart surgery to the Prophet alayhi salam. And then Jibreel alayhi salam took the heart of the Prophet alayhi salam, he washed it in the water of Zamzam in a gold basin. After that, the heart was joined together and restored to its place. Now, obviously, someone may, in this day and age, when they hear this, they will say that it's an easy thing. I mean, something that we do, this is what doctors do. Human beings are able to do it. So, obviously for Jibreel alayhi salam, it was easier. But imagine people back then when they heard these things. It would be very difficult for them to understand because the science did not reach that level yet, right? This is why usually when we hear something about in the religion that has an authentic back-end, authentic chain of narration, even if it's something we don't understand or we find it weird, it doesn't mean that it's wrong because our mind is not complete yet. Science is not complete yet. 10 years from now, the science that we know today is going to look like it's, backwards, right? So as time goes by and as people make more advancements in different fields, we get to know more things. So when we hear this kind of heart operation, we're like, yeah, I know. So even human beings do that. So for Jibreel alayhi salam to do is much easier. But imagine the people that heard this 1,000 or 1,400 years ago. If they use their mind to judge this, they'll say, oh, well, this is a weak narration. This never happened. But actually it did happen, and it's an authentic narration. So this was the first time Jibreel alayhi salam took out the heart for the Prophet alayhi salam and did a heart surgery on him, took out a blood clot, alaqa, that was in the heart of the Prophet alayhi salam, and said, this is the part of shaitan in you. So when the boys and the playmates saw that, actually because Jibreel alayhi salam was with Mikael, it's not mentioned here, but he was with his Mikael. So there were 2 men dressed in white clothing, as the authentic hadith describes it elsewhere. So the playmates came to the mother and said, verily Muhammad has been murdered. Because obviously they see him, the 2 men put him down, open his heart, and he alayhi salam actually had a physical scar in his body showing the surgery. So it's not something that was those magic wands, take out and put it back. No, it was an actual physical surgery. So they all rushed towards him, but then he found him to be all right, and that only his face was pale, was white. Anas radiallahu anhu said, I have seen the mark that was left on his chest from this operation. After this event, Halima was worried about Muhammad alayhi salam, so she returned him to his mother, with whom he alayhi salam stayed until he was 6 years old. So look at Muhammad alayhi salam, he's born, his father dies before he alayhi salam born. His first years of childhood, he doesn't really stay much with his mother. And then as we will see, his mother is going to die. So when you look at his life, alayhi salam, you see that this dunya really is worthless. Because when a person goes through trials in this world, it doesn't mean that he's unfortunate or Allah doesn't want good things for him. These are trials that that turn a boy into a man, that makes men real men. So as we go through the Sira, we have to understand that this is the best of mankind. The person we're dealing with here, we're talking about, he's the best of mankind, and yet look at his life, how it was. So if a person is suffering in dunya, it's not a big deal. It's the era after that matters. So Halima was worried about Muhammad alayhi salam and returned him to his mother, with whom he stayed alayhi salam until he was 6 years old. Also in respect of the memory of her late husband, Amina, the mother of the Prophet alayhi salam, and by the way, when we mention the mother of the Prophet alayhi salam or his father, we don't say radiallahu anhu, okay? Because they came before Islam, different scholarly opinions, but their matter is up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Their matter is up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Amina decided to visit the grave of her late husband in Medina, because as we said, Abdullah died in Medina, the father of the Prophet ﷺ. So she set out on a journey to cover 500 kilometers with her orphan boy. So for those brothers that went to Umrah or Hajj, you know how difficult it is to go from Medina to Mecca by an air-conditioned bus. People used to do that, on camelback. And she did that out of respect and out of memory for her late husband. So she was a faithful woman. So she covered 500 kilometers with her orphan boy. Also, her father-in-law, Abdul Muttalib, and a woman servant, Ayman, went with her. So she spent a month there in Medina, and then she made her way back to Mecca. On the way back to Mecca, she suffered a severe illness. We said that Medina was known for plagues, and she died in Abwa, on the road between Mecca and Medina, a place called Al-Abwa. It's well known today too. That's where she died. So here he is, 6 years old, his mother dies. Then he goes to his compassionate grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. So Abdul Muttalib brought the boy, Muhammad ﷺ, to Mecca. He had warm passions towards the boy. I mean, you can imagine, Abdul Muttalib's favorite son, Abdullah, died. And this is his grandson. And the mother of this son also dies. It's normal for him to feel mercy and pity towards the boy. Abdul Muttalib was more passionate with his grandson than he was with his own children. He never left the boy as prey to loneliness. So Abdul Muttalib always was with his grandson. He never left him to be alone and feel sad for his state. Instead, he always preferred him to his own children. Ibn Hisham, one of the writers of the well-known writers of the Sira of the Prophet ﷺ, reported a mattress was put in the shade of Al-Kaaba for Abdul Muttalib, because as we said, Abdul Muttalib was the one in charge of the pilgrims. So obviously he had a high status in Mecca, and he was one of their leaders. The children of Abdul Muttalib used to sit around that mattress in honor of their father, so they would not dare sit on the actual mattress because the mattress belonged to their father. But Muhammad ﷺ used to sit on it. His uncles would take him back, would not let him sit there, out of respect for their own father. But then, if Abdul Muttalib was present, he would tell them, "Leave my grandson. I swear by Allah that this boy will hold a significant position." So he felt that this boy, this orphan boy, was going to be something in the future. Inna li ibni hada la sha'n. So he used to tell his sons, "Leave my grandson. I swear by Allah that this boy will hold a significant position." Obviously, he's the best of mankind, and he's also going to be given al-Maqam al-Mahmud, the great position of Shafa'ah in the hereafter that no other human being will be given. So he used to seat the boy on the mattress, pat his back, and was always pleased with what the boy did. So Abdul Muttalib was a very compassionate grandfather. When Muhammad ﷺ was 8 years old, 2 months and 10 days old, his grandfather also passed away. So calamity after calamity, because death is calamity. The Prophet ﷺ then was passed on to his uncle, Abu Talib. Abu Talib, who was the brother of the Prophet ﷺ's father. And Abu Talib took the responsibility of Muhammad ﷺ in the best way. He put him with his own children and preferred him to them. Abu Talib was the father of Ali radiallahu anh. Ali bin Abi Talib. So Abu Talib was the father of Ali radiallahu anh. And he took his nephew Muhammad ﷺ and took care of him. His grandfather Abdul Muttalib passed away in Mecca. The charge of the Prophet was now passed on to his uncle Abu Talib, who was the brother of the Prophet's father. So the Prophet's father was Abdullah. His brother is Abu Talib. The names, they're kind of close to each other, so it may tend a little bit confusing. We have Hashim, then after that Abdul Muttalib, then Abu Talib. So Abu Talib was the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. He's the famous one that protected him for 4 years, protected him from Quraysh. And then when he was dying, the Prophet ﷺ tried to convince him to become Muslim, but he chose to die on the religion of his father Abdul Muttalib. Because we said back then, children used to be very attached to their forefathers and used to even reject the truth in honor of their parents. Ibn Asakir reported on the authority of Jalhama bin Arfuta, who said, "I came to Mecca when it was a rainless year. So Quraysh said, 'O Abu Talib, the valley has become leafless and children hungry. Let us go and pray for rainfall.'" This is istisqa. This is before Islam. Okay, because as we said, Quraysh, even though they worship statues, they also worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what shirk. Shirk means partnership. So they give partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not like they never worshipped Allah. They worshipped Allah, but they worshipped other things besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Abu Talib went to Al-Kaaba with a young boy who was as beautiful as the sun, as the Prophet ﷺ. And a black cloud was over his head. Abu Talib and the boy stood by the wall of Al-Kaaba and prayed for rain. Immediately clouds from all directions gathered and rain fell heavily and caused the flow of springs and growth of plants in the town and of the country. So he was a blessed person. Next we move to the story of Bahira the monk. When Allah's Messenger ﷺ was 12 years old, and they say maybe plus or minus 2 months and 10 days, he went with his uncle Abu Talib on a trade journey to Syria. When they reached Busra, it's not Basra, Basra is in Iraq. Busra is a part of Syria in the vicinity of Hawran. And it was back then under the control of the Roman Empire. That was a Christian empire at the time. There was a monk named Bahira. They say his name was Girgis, as we say today, or George. Girgis is in Arabic and George is the English one of it. Who came out to meet them. And although he had not met them before because they always traveled from that path, and this monk never really cared for these Quraysh, these Arabs. But this specific time, he actually came out and met them. And he readily recognized the Prophet ﷺ and said while taking his hand, "This is the master of all humans. Allah will send him with a message which will be a mercy to all beings." Abu Talib asked him, "How do you know that?" So here a monk who was a Christian, because as we said, out of Allah's mercy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave the news of the coming of Muhammad ﷺ to all the people that came before him, people of the previous scripture. So it's easy for them to believe in Muhammad ﷺ once he comes. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran and also in the Hadith that towards the end of time, Isa alayhi salam will come back to this earth. وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ. So this is a mercy for us. Why? Because we know that Muhammad ﷺ is the last messenger. So if we're not given this news and Isa alayhi salam comes, it's going to be difficult for us to believe in him, because I know Muhammad ﷺ is the last messenger. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that Isa alayhi salam is going to come towards the end of time. He's not a messenger after Muhammad ﷺ. He's a messenger that came before Muhammad ﷺ. And he's not going to bring in a new religion, by the way. Isa alayhi salam, when he comes, he's going to rule according to the Quran and according to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And he is a Muslim, because all the prophets are Muslim. يَحْكُمُ بِهِ النَّبِيُّونَ الَّذِينَ أَسْلَمُوا. All the messengers are Muslims. Muslims meaning they worship Allah alone. They submit to Allah's commandments. So Isa alayhi salam is going to come towards the end of times. And Allah has foretold us that, so it's easy for us to believe in him when he comes. This is what Allah did with the other people. But the other people, because of worldly reasons, they hid this news. Because if they shared these news, they will lose their worldly positions. And one of the very obvious examples of this is the father of Safiya bint Huyay radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. Huyay ibn Akhtab was one of the leaders of the Jews in Medina. And when Muhammad ﷺ emigrated to Medina, Huyay ibn Akhtab went out to meet him. And then when he came back, his brother asked him, now this is Safiya that's narrating this later on after she became the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. She says her father came back, his face was dark. In other words, he was very upset, very disappointed. His brother asked him, is it him? That means Muhammad ﷺ that you saw. Is it him that is foretold in our Torah? So Huyay ibn Akhtab said, yes, it is him. He has signs, alayhi salam. His signs are foretold. Whose phone is this? Somebody's phone there? Okay. So his brother asked Huyay, okay, so this is Muhammad ﷺ, this is the one that's foretold in our Torah. What did you decide to do? He said, I decided to be his enemy for as long as I lived. He recognized him. And he said, I decide to be his enemy for as long as I lived. And that's what he did. And he was one of the ones that were going to the mushriks, telling him of Mecca, telling them, come and fight Muhammad ﷺ. And finally, he was executed as he deserved. And the Prophet ﷺ got married to his daughter Safiya. And of course, some Muslims, I saw one of the questions in one of the websites asking, how can Safiya get married to Prophet ﷺ after he killed her father? He did not do injustice. Her father was an enemy of Islam. He was a fighter. He fought against Muhammad ﷺ, so he got killed. Now, after that, Safiya was taken as a prisoner of war, and the Prophet ﷺ did her a favor. She could have remained a slave under anyone. But he ﷺ took her, set her free, and married her. So he did her a favor. Okay? Because as we said before in the Friday prayer, there are these doubts that shaitan throws in the hearts of some of the Muslims. And subhanAllah, instead of them asking about how to pray, how to make wudu, how this, they go to these things that are really meaningless. You know, look, this kind of question that, how can she get married to the Prophet after he killed her father? I mean, what does it add to your faith? But, you know, again, as we said, if you have doubts, you ask, so that doubt is no longer in your heart. So Huyay ibn Akhtab decided to become an enemy of the Prophet ﷺ, even though he recognized him in the book. So the bottom line is that Muhammad ﷺ was foretold in the previous books. Bahira the monk recognized him from his description. So Abu Talib asked him, how do you know that he is the master of all humans? So he replied, when you appeared from the direction of Al-Aqaba, the hill, all stones and trees prostrated themselves, which they never do except for a prophet. I can also recognize him by the seal of prophethood. The seal of prophethood, which was below his shoulder, ﷺ, it's like an apple. It's like a red, it's like a dark brown or black spot with a few hairs growing on it that was in the back of the Prophet ﷺ. And one of the companions, who was a Jew, who was a monk of the Jew, who was a monk when he was a Jew, but later on he became Muslim, he was looking for this mark. So the Prophet ﷺ recognized that this person, the name doesn't come to me, was looking for that sign. So ﷺ reduced his rida garment so that he can show the sign to the companion. So he had a seal of prophethood in his back. So he said, I can also recognize him by the seal of prophethood which is below his shoulder, like an apple. We have found this in our books. So this Bahira is testifying that this was in the books of the Christians. He also asked Abu Talib to send the boy back to Mecca and not to take him to Syria for fear for him of the Romans and the Jews. Because if the Jews saw him with the signs foretold in their books, they will kill him. Because the Jews falsified their books saying that the blood of prophets is cheap. So they would kill him readily. Because they killed 300 prophets before. Isa alayhi salam, they tried to kill him as well, as we know. And Muhammad ﷺ also, they tried to kill him at many instances, to the point that actually when he died, alayhi salatu wasalam, he told Aisha, I feel the effect of the poison that the lady Jew gave me in the roasted sheep that she gave me. So he did not die ﷺ right away when he was poisoned, but when he was dying, he was feeling the effect of that poison in his jugular vein. This is why some of the scholars said that Muhammad ﷺ died as a martyr. He died as a shaheed. And this is why Abu Ubaidah says, Al-Mujahid al-Shaheed. This is why he calls the Prophet ﷺ as shaheed. This is the reason. Some people may not understand why he's calling Muhammad ﷺ as shaheed. So Bahira told him, take him back, because if the Jews or the Romans find him, they will kill him. So we'll stop here today. The time is over. We will continue tomorrow, inshallah. If you have any questions.